Not you. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Braintree Planning Board meeting for November 12th, 2025, 7 p.m. here at Braintree Town Hall. Like always, the meeting is being broadcast through BCAM on YouTube and is available on BCAM as well. We do have a full board again this evening, and being that it's 7 o'clock, we can move into the business section of our agenda, and then at 7:15 move into the public hearings. So the first item we have on the agenda is the approval not required plan for 250 Granite Street and Lakeside Drive addresses for applicant ZMA Development. Director, do you want to speak to that? I know we have the plan here.
I can give a brief update. This plan follows up on the heels of the approval of the ZOM project at the South Shore Plaza. In this land, this A&R separates the parcel that the ZOM project was approved for, and it has been, and this will obviously separate the land, and I know ZOM would obviously purchase the land from the South Shore Plaza. Simon Realty, Frank Marinelli is here representing ZOM, and can add any information to the application.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Frank Marinelli. Mr. Matchak has appropriately summarized the A&R. With me is Nick Rahman. Nick is the managing director of ZOM, and this A&R, as Peter pointed out, allows the 7 acres to be separated from the rest of the South Shore Plaza. The plaza has signed off on the application. This allows the project to move forward, and one of the things after the A&R will be the deregistration of the property. As the chair knows, the land court with engineering can take a long time, and so we're in the process of deregistering the property so that we can then move forward with construction drawings are underway and move forward with the building permit.
Thank you. And when you say that it's going to be deregistered, is only this new parcel going to be deregistered? Is it all registered land right now?
Yes, and I believe the South Shore, Nick can correct me if I'm wrong, but he's hired Bob Moriarty, who is an esteemed title attorney who we've worked with, and Bob is in the process of filing deregistration, but I think the plaza has also decided to deregister their property. Yes, so they're doing the whole thing.
Okay. All right. Are there any members who have any questions on the request for A&R? Member McCamey?
Thank you. Does this constitute a sale, Mr. Marinelli?
No,
or is
this
this
is
just
not.
the A&R part?
This is just the A&R part.
Okay. Has the sale already occurred?
No.
No.
No. Need to do the A&R first, then the deregistration, and then the conveyance.
I understand. Thank
Yep.
you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I don't have any questions. All right. So no other questions. Be looking for a motion to endorse the plan as approval not required.
So moved.
We have a motion by member Kent. Do we have a second? Second. Second by member Conley. All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we don't have a whole lot in our business section. So the next thing we have is the approval of the meeting minutes for September 9th, 2025. Any members have any questions or comments on that? No? Okay, seeing none, just be looking for a motion to approve the meeting minutes. So moved. We have a motion by member Conley. Do we have a second? Who was that, member Kane? Second by member Kane. All those in favor? Aye. All right. Okay. All right, Director, anything else you want to update the local
We,
people?
what do we have going right now? I can tell you, everybody, since our last planning board meeting, that the old Burger King has been knocked down, and that is obviously progress for the redevelopment of the Chipotle. And so that will get started fairly soon. Second, I can tell everybody that the construction over at, down at 125 Union Street continues to kind of build and to move forward. So, you know, we've seen some steady progress down there on that site. They're almost across Union Street with the conduit for the electrical to get over to the, to start running the electric lines for the new light poles. Some of the light poles have been placed, but not the mass arms. And so hopefully that continues to kind of plug along and move. They hit a couple roadblocks along the way. I think they ran into a couple old light post foundations when they were doing laying the conduit across Union Street. So it has been a little bit slower than anticipated, but things seem to be moving fairly quickly down there. I don't want to give an exact date for when those stores will be opening, but you know they hope, you know, as soon as possible. And so once everything is weather tight, they can really get in on the inside and really kind of work through the winter. So hopefully that project continues on. Yeah, those are the two big updates I can give everybody a heads up on. The wind project down on Allen Street continues to plug along with construction at that's that 4 to 40 for Allen Street. And really that's where the most construction progress has occurred within those three projects.
Great, thank you. All right, so it is 7:09 and we cannot start the public hearings until 7:15. So we'll just take a 5-minute recess and come back at 7:15. Thank you. All right, again, everyone, we are back for the Braintree Planning Board meeting, November 12th. It now being 7:15 in like 2 seconds. We are ready to go to move into our public hearings of the evening. There is an agenda that's been posted around. Our first hearing of the evening is a new public hearing for 60 Proctor Road, Planning Board File 2511. This is a grading permit, and I will turn it over to Assistant Director or the Director to open up the hearing.
I'm happy to, I'll read the public hearing, I'll read the public notice into the record. Notice is given by the Planning Board under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 9 and 11, in the Braintree zoning ordinance, Chapter 135, Articles 3, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, and 12, that a public hearing will be conducted on Wednesday, November 12th, 2025, at 7:15 p.m. in the Braintree Town Hall. The Planning Board will consider the application for a special permit, grading permit, filed by William F. Frazier, applicant. The applicant is seeking to construct a new 1,783 square foot single-family dwelling and a 900 square foot accessory dwelling unit with associated grading, upgraded utility connections, and a new drainage system. The proposed grading will remove approximately 129 cubic yards of material, resulting in a total land disturbance of 1,500 square feet. The property is located at 60 Proctor Road, Zone Residence A and B. The assessors, as shown on Assessor's Map 1098, Plot 61A. The total lot size is 0.45 acres. All material and applications was housed in the planning office and available online.
All right, thank you very much. And do we have anyone from the applicant on 60 Proctor Road? Yes.
Engineering, who will be presenting the plan, and we also have the applicant present tonight.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is David Mackel with Kelly Engineering Group. We prepared the application and the grading report for consideration by the Planning Board this evening. With me here tonight is Bill Frazier, the owner and applicant. The project is fairly straightforward. It's for a grading permit for a single-family house. The map that we have here just shows us where it is. As stated into the record, the majority of the parcel is in Residence B zoning district. The parcel is about 19,000 square feet, 0.45 acres. It's shaded in green here.
If you could just make sure you're talking to the microphone so people can pick it up. Thank you.
Thanks. It's shaded in green on the map, and then we can just keep moving forward with the slides, and we'll make it as quick as possible. The slide in front of you there is the existing conditions plan. The lot formerly had a home on it until at some point in this year, we knocked it down because it was not able to be repaired. And he's going to build a new home and take advantage of the accessory dwelling unit provision within the Mass State Law and the Braintree zoning code. So if we just keep moving one more slide, this is just the existing conditions. So there's a house here. This is a rendered plan by the architect showing that the new development will, with the floor plan superimposed, some new landscaping. It's just a colored version of what's going to be. The house on the left is the larger 1,700 square foot footprint home with two bay garage. The accessory dwelling unit will get its own driveway with no garage. And we can just keep moving through, and we'll explain these things. This is a layout and zoning plan that demonstrates that the project will fully comply with all zonings. You can see the zoning setback in the dash line. Both of the new structures are well within the zoning setbacks. He doesn't wish to push the new dwellings too close to the property line. And this plan demonstrates we're fully compliant with all of the zoning provisions. We can just keep moving through the slides. This is the site plan that we put together. I know there's a lot of lines on here because we got a lot of things, but really we're just trying to highlight in the blue, if you can see it, or maybe it didn't translate well, that we're collecting, all of the site drainage and the roof drainage and putting them into recharge galleys in the backyard. Those will be fully compliant with both of the grading regulations and the town of Braintree stormwater management regulations that have been adopted. So they will exceed any state DEP requirements for stormwater management and comply with the grading requirements and the town stormwater management bylaw. A full stormwater report was submitted with this particular application. We also provided a stormwater report to the engineering department who oversees the stormwater management permit. We can keep going through this sheet here as part of the grading plan requirements where we show cross sections, and we've been able to shade out the area that is to be graded in detail. You can see in the cross sections that the 2 new homes will be built basically at existing grade. We're just going to dig the foundation holes and really not changing the grade very much at all, but it is a disturbance over 5,000 square feet, and therefore we do need a grading permit. Next slide is elevation and floor plans of the new home, just to show the planning board and the public what the homes will look like. Be nicely designed and pointed homes. Fairly, standard colonial here. And then the next one should be the accessory dwelling unit, which is a little smaller, will be on the other side of the property, 900 square feet. We have worked with the planning staff prior to submitting the application to make sure that we had all of the documents necessary for the approval. In the last couple of weeks, we have received the comment from the DPW, Department of Public Works Department, that there's currently a roadway moratorium for utility connections, and also that they'll really only have 1 water connection and 1 sewer connection for both properties. We don't feel that that's an issue at all for this development. We're able to reach out to DPW, and the moratorium, I think, will be lifted in the spring, at which time, if we need any new connections, they would be made. I think we really were only going to need a gas connection. There's a water connection there now and a sewer connection, so there won't be much roadway work. We already touched the fact that we need a stormwater management permit. We need the grading permit, which also comes, I think, with an erosion control permit through the bylaw. And those are the only land use permits that we need besides a building permit to construct the project. So with that, I see that you have a lengthy agenda through the chair. I will close my part of the presentation, turn it back to the planning board. We do have the applicant here, and if there's any public comments that need to come in.
Great, thank you. Has any of the fill been removed off the site yet?
I don't believe there's any fill been removed off the site. Bill, is the only thing that has happened over there is I think they knocked the house down, and when they had an excavator, they filled the hole in, and I think they did a couple test holes that we weren't privy to, but they said all the soil looks good over there.
Thank you. Member McCamey, comments, questions?
Thank you. I appreciate the fact that you haven't started any of the work yet. We've had other recent applicants that have done that. And again, it brings public safety into question. When these homes are built, are they going to be rentals or are they going to be sold?
I don't know if that's decided yet. We do have the applicant here to speak to that.
Yes, I'll probably put them on the market for sale.
Just speak into the microphone, Mr. Frazier, please.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll probably put them on the market for sale.
Okay. And will they be, since it's an accessory dwelling unit, will it be combined with the main house or will it be separate?
It's a separate structure altogether. There's like 25-foot separation from building to building.
Okay. Does it need its own lot?
But it would be sold as one, right?
Correct. It's going to be under one lot, 2 structures.
Okay,
One
that was my
deed,
question.
yes,
I'm sorry,
correct,
yes. Okay,
All right?
yes, that's enough, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Member Kent?
Yeah, just explain again how that works with it's one lot, but two houses, so.
Yes, I think there's 21,000 square feet total on the lot.
Yeah,
We're putting one large house there, 4 bedrooms, 2-car garage. And Maura Healy passed into law, if you have enough setbacks, you can either put an accessory building attached to it or separate, as long as you meet all the setbacks on the front, side, and back. So that's what we've done. We're taking advantage of that law, and we're going to do the best we can to make it. When I'm done with it, it'll be beautiful.
okay, so if it's sold,
You can't separate the property, or each structure will be sold as one. So both parcels will be one sale. You can't separate this. There's only one deed on the property.
right, okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Member Conley?
Could you just state your name and address for the clerk so she can include that in the record?
William F. Frazier, 60 Pearl Street, Braintree.
Thank you. I have no comments.
Thank you. Member Kane?
No comments, looks pretty.
Member Kinahan?
No comments.
Okay. I don't have any either. It is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public here on 60 Proctor Road? If you have a public comment, you can come up to the microphone and give your name and address. No? Yeah. Mr. Frazier, there's someone who would like to speak, if you can give some space.
I just wanted to.
Oh, sorry, you have to speak into the microphone. Just give your name and address.
I'm Joanne McCarthy at 1187 Liberty Street. I had a long discussion with Peter Matchek, is it? Yes. Today, so that I could understand what is happening here. And I think that an explanation of the law that Mr. Frazier is taking advantage of would benefit the audience, because it's kind of new in that area when we've all been single-family houses. So, I mean, predominantly, I'm on the Liberty side, so I probably would be in the A bracket. But under the accessory development unit, if they are sold and there's one owner, which I think you're saying.
Correct.
Right, one owner, they don't have to be related to each other, if I understand the law.
Right.
They do not have to be related to each other. So basically, if Mr. Frazier wanted to keep the property and rent it out and be an absentee landlord, I think that's also possible, is it not?
That's correct.
Okay. But I mean, something like that in our neighborhood is new, and that's why I wanted explanation of it. I'm worried about my property, and we've already had a discussion prior to this when I came to the other meetings, because the fence is on the wrong line. I mean, it isn't much of a line, but it's now leaning against it. I did nothing to bring up anything until he started building something. And this is the new, after a year and a half since the last discussions, that still hasn't been resolved. And it was Pat Frazier who put up the Frazier part. There's also an issue of the next house, because my property abuts 2 on Proctor Road. It abuts the 60 Proctor Road and 50, part of 50. So, I mean, basically, I think we need to explain a little bit more so that everyone understands what's going on here. And I am concerned, because there's a little bit of a slope, about this whole, what do you call it? Not an irrigation system, but the drainage system.
Yes, it's an infiltration system.
Infiltration
Chamber
system.
bays, so there'll be an infiltration.
I'll take a seat then if you want to talk.
Thank you. Well, there is an infiltration system that's going to be in place for the ADU and also for the principal structure that will collect all the rainwater from the gutters and actually put those into the ground, managing the storm water on the site. But just to unpack the full comment, and for everyone's information in the room, is that, yes, this application is taking advantage of a new housing law that was passed by the governor in the state legislature. It went into effect this past February, and that is allowing ADUs, accessory dwelling units, to be allowed by right in any zoning district that allows single-family housing by right. And so therefore, this is one of the first applications in Braintree that is taking advantage of this new law. Town council here in Braintree a few months ago passed bylaws, which were presented by this board prior to my arrival. However, the bylaws have been accepted by our town council this past September. This application meets those town bylaws. Regarding the units, Mr. Frazier is correct. This lot cannot be split into two separate lots via A&R. However, the application does propose to build two dwelling units, a principal structure and an accessory dwelling structure. Zoning in no instance allows for zoning to control ownership, right? The ADU law does not go far enough to control ownership. And so therefore, it is the right of the applicant, and it would be the right of any homeowner to develop an ADU, condoize that property, and then you could sell each unit separately.
I
But
don't
you're-
believe you can condo the ADUs.
I
I think
believe-
you can rent them, I don't think you can condo them. I don't think so, I'm not 100% sure, but I didn't
Okay.
think you could condo them.
I am of the understanding that you
Yeah, I might,
cannot, because that would be the owners, because zoning doesn't cover ownership.
yeah.
So we're reviewing this in general. The application to develop this ADU does check all the boxes within our bylaws and within the state regulations. It's new, and it's here in the Commonwealth. And I think more and more of these will be coming through. But this application does fit the bylaws.
All right, thank you. And the question with the infiltration and the stormwater, can you explain a little bit more about how the infiltration will work?
So the infiltration system, as required by the stormwater management bylaw in the town for residential construction, it consists of dry wells or chambers in the backyard. In general, the topography on this land slopes from the front of the property toward the back of the property and kind of down, and I guess you would say to the, as you're looking at the plan, to the right, down and to the right. So continuing with that, we've done calculations for the design points that decrease the flow rate and volume to the backyard. It looks like there's a lot of development here, but the fact that we have a kind of two smaller driveways, I think the increase in impervious area really isn't that much, and the provision to add the chambers in the backyard for volume and storage mitigates all of the runoff concerns. As you can see there, our limit of work is quite a distance from the rear property line as well. So most of the land near the neighbor that spoke won't be touched at all. So we don't anticipate any drainage concerns. As far as a common property line fence, we're here for a grading permit. There's a fence there now. Mr. Frazier's a very reasonable person and would be willing to work with the neighbor if they all want to replace the fence, but I don't think that he's required to buy everybody a new fence or do what they want, but he certainly would work with the neighbors in any capacity to reach an agreement. And
Thank you.
I think, Peter, you answered all the questions about the accessory dwelling unit very well. It's a state law that was passed, and the town has since adopted zoning and regulations to accompany that. What we think is our accessory dwelling unit is compliant with both the state law and the local zoning, and that really won't get vetted until we file for a building permit, because it's part of zoning enforcement when they vet the project when we file for a building permit. We cannot file for a building permit until we have the grading permit and the stormwater management permit. So we're checking our boxes, but we feel that working with the architect and the applicant that the AD unit will comply with all of the regulations.
Great, thank you. And as to the staff report, there was a comment in there about having a revised grading plan with the location of graded areas.
Yep.
Does the like grade out plan that was shown, does that answer the question? Or
Yes,
is it-
it's the gray grade out plan
Okay.
that kind of shows where the material will be taken off, and the existing grade will be lowered to meet the permit.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, and just, in the audience, did you have another comment that you wanted to raise? Yes, come on up, just give your name and address, please.
My name is Gail Burns, and I live on 28 Proctor Road, which is at the bottom of Proctor Road. And I think I understand a little bit, but not that much about the grading. Would this affect your system? Would that take care of a lot of the drainage that would run down Proctor Road?
It would eliminate it.
It would
Go in
eliminate
these
it, okay.
Holding tanks first, and then disperse evenly like that on the property.
Okay, I just wondered, because we have some pumps, and we've had a problem
Yeah.
with water down
Right,
there
yeah.
for many years. I've lived there 50 years, and
Right.
so to add to it, I'm just concerned, but as long as I understand that there won't be more drainage.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, members of the board, any additional follow-up questions or comments? No? All right, so we have a staff report. We don't have a draft decision. Oh, yes,
There's
go
additional
ahead.
public comment.
Oh, okay, come on up. Sorry, just wait till you get to the microphone.
Joanne McCarthy again. Regarding the fence issue, neither of these fences that are in the back of my property are my fences. So, when you say that there's nothing, that, I don't want to take down somebody else's fence.
And
So
whatever,
that's it.
right, and whatever we do here only has to
Right.
do with the grading, so whatever
But
issue is with the
that was one of the
fence.
things that was said that was kind
yeah.
of slipped under the...
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a staff report. I don't think we have a draft decision, correct? Okay.
We do
so-
not.
Okay, so we could continue to December. We could vote on the application tonight and then have a draft decision that we essentially vote on the draft decision at the December hearing. Mr. Frazier, do you have any preference?
If we could get it through tonight, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, and so with that, we can take a vote on it, and then staff can work on the draft decision. You can take a look at it beforehand, and then, assuming everything's okay, we can just have a quick vote in December.
Okay.
All right, so with that, be looking for a motion to approve the grading permit, subject to a draft decision to be discussed. Oh, sorry, first, we're looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Member Kent, do we have a second? Second by Member Conley, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, and now looking for a motion to approve the grading permit, subject to a decision to be discussed at the November hearing. December hearing, that's what I thought I said. Okay.
So moved.
We have a motion by Member Conley and a second by Member Kane. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next item we have on the agenda is 201 Commerce Drive. And just grab my... So this application that we have here, we did close the public hearing at the last meeting, and so we do have a draft decision in front of us. Are there any members who have any questions on the draft decision? Or comments? I'm not going to take any more comment on it, just because the public hearing's been closed. Unless
Sure.
there's any questions, we can decide what to do at that point.
Yeah, we don't
but-
have any objection to the conditions.
Okay.
We reviewed them.
Thank you. All right. Any members with comments or questions? Nope. All right, seeing none, I'll be looking for a motion to approve the decision as drafted.
So move.
We have a motion by Member Kent. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Member McCamey. All those in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. Okay, next item on our agenda is a continued public hearing. This is for 60 Columbian Street, Planning Board File 2509. This is also a grading permit. And who do we have from the applicant?
Good afternoon, Carlos Scully with Civil and Environmental Consultants for the applicant.
Thank you. And so we do have a draft decision here. Did you have an opportunity to take a look at the decision?
I have not. We provided additional materials to the town earlier this week, so I have not had a chance to review the draft decision.
Okay. All right. And from the planning office, are there any additional comments?
No, I will say that all material that was requested from the planning board has been submitted by Carlos. It's a fairly simple decision that was drafted, but all the elements are requested. The as-built plan, the letter certifying from the design engineer that the stormwater infrastructure was put in as designed. Also, there was an O&M plan submitted that was shared with DPW. And so I will say, since this project has been built, the applicant has been helpful working through the process, getting us the information that we need. And so we were able to build out the decision using all that documentation that was supplied by the applicant. And so I do want to thank the applicant working with the town through a quote-unquote sticky situation, permitting the grading work after the fact. But everything from my standpoint, from the planning office standpoint, has been fulfilled.
Okay, thank you. Are there any members who have any comments or questions? Yes, Member McCamey?
Yep. With the completion of this project, is there any area left to be developed, or will it have been completely developed, this site, 60 Columbian?
I think there's area to be developed on 60 Columbia.
Okay.
Yeah, the project the permit here is just for the grading, the parking lot expansion that was done for the RMV. The Banner Park project, which was approved by this planning board about I want to say about 2 years ago, showed for much longer.
Yeah.
For much greater development at that site.
Right.
And that still obviously has the opportunity to be developed.
Okay, so that could come back to us.
Correct.
Got it.
That could come back to us. And then also you have the Mass General site next door, which is in the process of, last I heard, was for sale. And so there could be some future development up at this site.
Okay, thank you.
Member Kent? No. Member Conley?
No questions, thank you.
Member Kane? Member Kinahan? No? Okay. All right, this is a still open public hearing. Is there anyone here on 60 Columbian Street? All right. All right. I'll see in that. I will be looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
A motion by Member Kent and a second by Member Kane. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And I'll just be looking for a motion to approve the grading permit and modification to site plan review pursuant to the draft decision.
So moved.
We have a motion by Member Kane. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Kent. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. If I may, could I get a copy of the draft conditions just to be able to review with the client as well? Or
Sure.
the approved conditions?
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Will be emailed, yes. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Next item on our agenda is 55 King Hill Road.
So just to take a minute,
Yes.
55 King Hill Road, we do have an updated plan, which is dated today, November 12th. The applicant is here to present the plan, which to my knowledge has been vetted by both the applicant and the neighbor, and has been agreed upon by both parties. In your packet, you will find a letter that was submitted by Attorney Galvin, who stands in front of us, and also an updated plan, which will be presented by Sean Hardy.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you. All right, Attorney
Thank you,
Galvin.
Madam Chairperson and board members. My name is Gregory Galvin. I'm an attorney with offices at 775 Pleasant Street in Weymouth. As you know, Mr. Hardy is here also. My role is strictly on the issue with regard to the neighbor to the east of Mr. Almy, the applicant. I worked with his attorney, Mr. Modestino, who unfortunately could not be here tonight, but we came to an agreement, and that has been submitted to Mr. Machek, and hopefully it is satisfactory to everyone. Essentially, as you know, there were two previous hearings which Mr. Hardy made presentations, and we were dealing with how the retaining wall was going to affect the ALOs whose property abuts to the east and north of Mr. Almy's property. So, as I said, I believe we've solved that issue, and we would look to see if there's any questions. I know Mr. Hardy made an in-depth presentation this past summer on 2 different nights, so I'm not sure if there's any additional questions.
All right, thank you. Pleased to see that the 2 neighbors were able to work it out. What's the difference between the November 5th plan and the November 12th plan? Is it the additional arborvitaes?
Yes, he's going to plant 25 arborvitaes, worked out with Mr. Ronald ALO where he wanted them planted. And essentially, if you've been up there, there are 2 different mailboxes for 41 and 41R, King Hill, and they're going to go in between those mailboxes. So whatever the spread is on footage, I mean, you got well over 200 feet from King Hill to the rear of Mr. Aiello's property, and we're going to plant them where he's asked them to be planted. Yeah, the wall is moved back 2 feet from the property line. The driveway is, Mr. Aiello's driveway is about 4 feet off the property line. So that's grassed area, and then another 2 feet before the wall is erected.
All right, thank you. Any members that have any comments or questions?
Just one quick
Yes.
question. When will this construction work take place?
It's weather dependent, looking, obviously it got very cold very quickly. He wants to get moving as fast as he can, but we've got to get the final permits in place, and then if weather dependent, it will go sooner, but if not, it'll be more towards the spring.
Okay, thank you.
All right. This is still an open public hearing. Is there anyone here on 55 King Hill Road? Okay. All right. Well, with that, we do have a draft decision on this one, so I think, unless there's any other comments, we're looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by member Kent. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Conley. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. All right, and then be looking for a motion to approve the grading permit subject, or in accordance with the draft decision.
Move that also, so move.
Motion by Member Kent. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Conley. All those in favor? Aye. All right.
Thank you very much.
All right. I'm glad you worked it out in between. Thank you. Okay. All right. Next item on our agenda is 10 Plain Street, Planning Board File 2506. Thank you. Have a good evening. We'll give everybody just a minute to get in their spots. We have Carl Seidman. Did you, Director, want to have him come up
Correct.
here?
I just want to give, yes, Carl Simon, who's our peer review from our financial analyst, is here tonight. So just before we kick it off with TCR, Carl will have some stuff to say just for the board. And then
Great.
also we'll let TCR go through their presentation. I know there's been back and forth with some traffic. I see MDM is represented here tonight, as well as the civil team and the architecture team. I also do want to make a note for the planning board. Eric Diaz, peer review for the town civil, is in the room, and so also he'll be able to provide his thoughts on the project as we kind of move forward. So
Okay.
if we want to take a break, that's fine, but I just wanted to kind of set the table for tonight's conversation.
All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, so Attorney Marilyn, I think we're going to start with Mr. Seidman to give an
Sure.
overview of where we're at this point.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So my name is Carl Seidman. I'm a planning, economic development, fiscal impact consultant, and I was hired by the town to review the fiscal impact analysis that was prepared and submitted by the developer for the 10 Plain Street project. And as part of my due diligence, I visited and toured the site, reviewed a fair amount of documentation, also spoke with a number of town officials, police chief, school superintendent, the assessor, public works, fire department, to test and validate the information that was in the fiscal impact report. And the overall conclusion of the fiscal impact report submitted by Figueroa Planning and Development, that the project will have a positive net fiscal impact on the town, is sound. I agree with that. My estimates produce a slightly lower net fiscal impact. I estimate a net fiscal impact somewhere between $733,000 and just under $1.2 million, compared to a range of $1.2 million to $1.9 million that was in the report. And those differences really result from three main issues. One is the estimate of the property tax revenue. That's really the most significant fiscal impact of the project, is how much it will generate in impact in terms of new property tax revenue. And the fiscal impact report looked at assessed values per unit of 4 other properties, multifamily properties, and based its assessment on that, and ended up with an estimate of tax revenue of about $2.9 million. To sort of validate that, I did a estimate of the assessed value based on the property's net operating income. That's typically how an assessor will value the property. So I essentially looked at other market data on the rental income, worked with developers to estimate other revenue they might get from parking and the like, looked at what the operating costs would be, and I came up with an assessed value of about a little less than $300 million, which is close to what the fiscal impact report indicated. So, in general, I think you're likely to have a overall tax revenue impact of somewhere from the property taxes of 2.8 to 3.0 million dollars. I'd say the fiscal impact report reported the gross property tax revenue and didn't offset the loss of existing revenue you get, so which is about 195,000. So they overstated a little bit the net fiscal impact from that respect. The other sort of main issues relate to the impact on police, fire, and school services. I think the estimate for fire seems to be accurate. The police chief, the fire chief essentially agreed with their estimate of the number of calls the project might generate. He suggested a slight increase in the per call cost. That's fairly modest. But for the police department, this is a large project. It will have significant impact on police services. So what the department is planning to do is set up a new 7th patrol sector to serve this site and this project, which would require essentially 3 new police officers. And they also feel they would need a patrol car, which would be another additional cost. So, my estimate of these costs are about $481,000, which is slightly higher from the fiscal impact report, which had an estimate of $312 to $375, and that's primarily due to the fact that they use 2.5 to 3 new police officers, but 24-hour coverage will require 3 police officers. The salaries are a little higher for the overnight salary, and they didn't include a police cruiser because I don't believe they were informed that would be necessary. So slightly higher police costs. In terms of the school cost impacts, the project's expected to add 117 new school-age children. This was kind of based on data from some other multifamily projects, in Braintree, as well as a database that a consultant has on a number of multifamily projects. So I think the estimate of new school children seems pretty reasonable, and they're assuming the breakdown will be similar to other multifamily projects. So 47 elementary school students, 33 middle school students, and 37 high school students. Based on my conversation with the school superintendent, the biggest issue for the schools is going to be on the elementary school student impact. This property is in the south side of Braintree, and it's currently served by 2 elementary schools that are already at full capacity. So they will have to add new teachers to serve the additional school children. The estimate of 8 new teachers in the fiscal impact analysis report was confirmed by the school superintendent. The one addition here is that they feel they'll need a dedicated school bus to serve that site based on the number of students. So that will add additional $68,000 cost. So a slightly higher fiscal impact for the schools. The other issue is special education costs, and the school superintendent did feel the estimate in the report was accurate. He did express some concern that because Braintree has a strong reputation for special education, some people might move to the town to get access to special education services, and with a large multifamily unit, there might be higher number of demand for special education if people specifically move based on this project because of that. But it's hard to know for sure what will happen. The other issue I looked at is the fact that there are other multifamily development projects you're probably aware of that are in the pipeline. Some have been one's under construction, 2 have been permitted, 3 others are proposed. So if all of those get built, that's another 648 units, and that will bring approximately another 85 students beyond the 10 Plain Street project. If those, are split fairly evenly across grade levels, another 20 to 25 elementary school students, that might require another 2 to 3 teachers at a cost of, somewhere between $130,000 to $205,000. I mean, that seems like a fairly modest cost impact given the tax revenues you would get from those additional units. So it doesn't seem like there'd be a major impact on the schools, from this project in conjunction with the other projects. The other item I just want to note is that there are some other potential cost issues that have not been resolved yet. There's a number of, as you're aware from the police chief's letter that was submitted earlier, there are concerns about traffic impacts and some proposed mitigation measures associated with that. The full impact on water and sewer has not been fully analyzed yet. The DPW doesn't think there'll be any capacity issues or other improvements needed, but that still is to be determined. The expectation is, though, any additional costs for water and sewer would be paid for as mitigation by the developer. But once again, this has not been worked out, so it is a potential cost item that I want to note that might fall on the town depending upon the results of the negotiations. The other point I would highlight is there are some non-fiscal benefits associated with the project that are important to note. It will add another 76 new affordable housing units in the town and increase housing options, for Braintree residents or future residents. The developer will be making investments in open space on the site and public walking trails. And I think, particularly noteworthy is this is a large former manufacturing site that's been, vacant and underutilized for several decades. So the reuse of this will bring that underutilized property into, significant economic use. It will also result in remediating any remaining environmental contamination issues that are at the site. And also, given the site's, adjacency to the Montezquat River and the restoration project the town has invested in, this will sort of enhance that investment and that sort of environmental goal for the town. The other sort of issue just to be aware of is that, the 90% of the revenue for this project is going to come from property tax revenues, and the estimate is dependent on the project actually performing in the marketplace, as projected, achieving the rents, being largely occupied, and that there's not uncertainty to that, given if market conditions or economic conditions change. Although there is a housing shortage in the state, and the project location, quality amenities, make it less likely that the project won't perform well, but it is a risk to be aware of. And also if interest rates, if there's more inflation, higher interest rates, the property's assessed value might end up being affected by that. So that might impact the revenue. But overall, I think, the project will have a substantial positive fiscal impact, net positive fiscal impact, and, benefit the town by its, investment in a new, highly productive site. So I'll stop there. I know I gave you a lot of data, but I'll open it up for comments or questions.
Great, thank you. Someone inclined to start with you, but I think I'm going to turn it over to Member McCamey first. Member McCamey, any comments or questions at this point?
One of the items which obviously everybody contests is the number of school children.
Right.
So I assume you use some sort of standard procedure to come up with your estimates?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't come up with my own estimates. I sort of reviewed the estimates that Mark Fulgera did, and you know, his data seemed to be well supported based on, you know, looking at school-aged children in existing multifamily properties in Braintree, and then for affordable units, he drew on a database he has developed of affordable units in multifamily properties, you know, in other suburban communities. So it seemed to be well supported by a lot of data. You know, it's an estimate, you know, depending upon who ultimately moves into the site and, you know, how many children they have and how long they stay. It might be different, but the consultant that produced the report and the estimates, it seemed to be valid and well supported by comparable data.
Does the school department have this information? Does anybody have this information in town? So, you know, we have several multifamily locations, and I've never seen any data in any of the projects we've done on how many, you know, school children are coming from each of these sites.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Fulgera did collect data from the school department.
Oh, okay.
On specific projects, yeah.
Yeah. Do we have access to that somewhere?
It's in his report. I don't have it in front of me right now, but it is.
Did we get that report?
It is in his report. That's part of the submission.
Quite a while ago.
Quite a while ago. Okay. I'll have to go look at that. Right.
But Mark
Yeah.
Fisher, the applicant's fiscal impact analyst did submit that data. And just to note, also that was something that was distributed, was an email dated November 7th, and it is from Mark Fulgera, and he verifies the work that Carl did in the consultant in his report. And he concludes that the work is acceptable in the general findings of his report. Supply, you know, and who will supply any additional information. And so that email from Mr. Fulgera is kind of in everyone's packet.
Okay.
So there has been some correspondence back and forth.
We'll dig it up. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Because I did review both reports today, and thank Mr. Seidman for his work on this. The numbers were Landing Apartments with 17 school-aged children, and Lenox Farms, which is 338 units, was 40 children. And Landing 53 is 172 units. So that's over 500 units, with 17 and 40 respectively.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Member Kent.
Sure. So I'm looking at, if I got it right, the budget proposed for fiscal year '26 was 175.6 million of revenue and 175.6 of expense, for a total profit of, if that's the right term, surplus of $22,000. So, you know, the range of $1 million is between $1.9 million and $732 as to how this project would be accretive to the budget. Do we have like it's 80% confident that it's in that range, or 50% confidence in it's in that range, or help me out with that?
I mean, well, I could say, you know, for the range that I came up with, 733 to 1.2, I'd say, you know, 80% confidence, you know.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
And you considered the other 648 units that are scheduled to come on the market in roughly the same time frame and everything?
Yeah, I didn't do a full fiscal impact analysis, but in terms of the impact on schools, it seems like the fiscal impact on the school children from those projects will be modest, you know, in the area of $100,000 to $200,000. And, you know, that much residential development will generate significant tax revenue. So I don't think, you know, based on the conversation with the school superintendent, those extra units won't, you know, the place where they'll have the biggest impact on school capacity is going to be elementary school teachers, and that's potentially up to $200,000 in additional cost, which it seems very modest based on the tax revenue you would get from those additional units.
Okay.
And I'd also say, I didn't mention here, there are, you know, one-time revenues from the building permit fees and water and sewer connection fees, which are close to $4 million. So that's not a recurring revenue, but it is a significant one-time revenue
But
to the
it
town.
would help with respect to the 175 million,
Yeah.
or whatever the equivalent is next year while this project, over the next couple of years, is being developed.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the one-time fees would
Right.
certainly help
Right.
with respect to the upcoming fiscal year budgets.
Right, yeah.
If not the
Right.
long-term budgets.
Right.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Thank you. I'm good.
Thank you. Member Conley?
Thank you. I had a question specific to the schools. Did the school department share any concerns about housing the students or where those students would be attending school?
Well, their expectation is they would be in the 2 elementary schools on the south side, and that's where their capacity is constrained, and they would have to add teachers. They don't see a concern with the middle schools or high school.
Did they have concerns related to the physical space, though?
They didn't express any concerns about the physical space, no.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Member Kane?
Yeah, so I think the assessed value is estimated at 300 million, give or take. I'm curious, how does a apartment complex of this nature age? What do you tend to see in terms of tax value? Does it tend to rise? Does it rise at a rate similar to single families or condominiums?
Yeah, I mean, it will depend a lot on, you know, what happens with market rents, and what happens, you know, with interest rates and investment returns. So, you know, so you know, given, I'd say in the medium term, you're likely to see, you know, appreciation if the rental market continues to be as tight as it is now. You know, a lot is being done on the policy side, as we know, to kind of increase housing supply. So, you know, longer term, you might see a stabilization of the valuation if, you know, a lot more housing gets built and rents get stabilized. You know, but it's hard to predict what happens. I will say this is going to be a new project. It's a very high quality project. It will have a lot of amenities. It's a very attractive site. So I think it's likely to, you know, hold or increase its value, certainly, you know, for the first 10 years at least of its life.
10 years is a tighter window than I'd expect to hear from like a comfort level. When I think about like a single family house, like, you know, my house, I expect to always kind of more or less go up.
You know, I'm 69 years old. I've been around for a fair amount of time. I bought my first house in 1987, and when I sold it in 1994, it had actually declined in value by about 20%. And, you know, for those of you who went through the, you know, financial crisis and recession in, you know, 2007, 2008, the market also declined quite a bit. So you know, we're in a time now where there's been enormous appreciation in single-family housing rates, but you can't assume that's always going to be the change. You know, the economy's cyclical, the market's cyclical, so how a housing market will perform and how the rental housing market will perform relative to single family is going to, depend on economic factors, market factors, what happens with supply and demand. So it's, I don't feel comfortable making a prediction of how this project will do relative to single family housing. But,
sure. I guess maybe I should rephrase the question. It's more, I'm worried about impacts as other housing stock comes online. I understand obviously an apartment, or even a condo would appreciate at different rates than a single family. I get that. But I guess the trajectory, yes, there are ebbs and flows, but historically, real estate in general, single family tends to go up, whether an apartment or a condo or whatever, they go at a slower rate, but they do go up. When I think about other housing stock, other large scale apartments, I wonder, architecture changes, desires for architecture, desires for amenities change. What historically would you expect for, say, the Avalon apartments that got built in Quincy, or whatever the ones that are up on the hill at the Southeast Expressway? How do those age 10 years from now? And with this new housing stock comes on board, are we seeing a decline in the value of those older ones, or do they hold steady? And also, yes, there's this.
I can't say I've done the analysis to answer that question. It's also, it does depend on the owner's reinvestment in the property, to keep it current and to reflect changes in market demand. So, if this owner has a good reputation, if they hold on to the property and own it, they're certainly going to have incentives to invest in it and keep it current with the market. But I can't say I've done any analysis of historic trends in multifamily units to answer your question.
Chairwoman Kim, curious, what tools does the board have to kind of protect ourselves from a landlord that, not to say that Trammell Crow would, but a landlord that comes in and, they make a nice product, but then they start to not care so much, and now they don't have to pay as many taxes, so it's incentivizing for a property owner to not care as much, in a sense. How do we protect ourselves as a town?
Yeah, my understanding, I think we can condition upkeep of the exterior and the items that are within the site plan and MBTA zoning. But as far as general updates, they need to do a facelift every 10 years, that type of stuff. I don't think any of that is up for grabs, so to speak.
Okay.
Would be my thought.
That's my biggest concern, I guess, is 10 years from now, having an eyesore that's been outcompeted in the market by some other housing that's come online. And then the tax that we get from this property has gone down, and perhaps if it's not cared for, crime could go up theoretically or something, I don't know. But, and I think that's probably the concern of a lot of the residents that will live around it. But
I'd say that the owner does have a financial incentive to maintain the property and try and achieve the best rent possible, and so you are relying to some extent on the sort of financial incentives.
So long as they hold it.
What?
So long as they hold it, right?
Right, or a new owner as well would have some financial incentive to trying to get the best rents possible.
Okay. Thank you for the breakdown on all the other things. Yep. Very helpful.
Thank you. Member Kinahan?
Question about the school cost. So 117 students, and just doing the simple division, that comes out to around 9,700 to 11,600 per student per year. Is that correct?
If you average it across all the students, but most of the impact is really from the elementary school teachers, because the middle and high school teachers, the school superintendent believes those, can be absorbed without adding teachers.
So there's some students in here that might have no additional cost associated with them?
Right. It's going to depend ultimately on the, distribution of students by grade level. That's going to have the big impact on what the actual costs are.
Okay. That just seems very low to me. I mean, if there's out-of-district placements, those can be 6 figures for one student. If there's special ed.
Well, no, I mean, the special ed costs were estimated separately, and the special ed costs are, you know, $45,000 per student is what the average is, and that's what was used to estimate the cost for special ed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. And the other cost, is that just the other, you know, smaller town budgets divided, allocated somehow to each unit?
For school costs?
No, sorry. The line below, the other cost, is that just an allocation of
Right, I mean,
smaller town budgets to the 700 units?
Well, the police costs, you know, were based on additional need.
Right. Sorry, the line titled other costs, it's only
other
it's
costs,
90,000.
That was just an estimate for like elder services and library and stuff like that. And, you know, the report used let me see, and go back and look at the figure that the report had used here. Hold on. Yeah, I mean, they assumed $120 per unit to account for some of those other costs, you know, but elder affairs, library, and the like. So, you know, I think the assumption there is there's not going to be a very intensive, you know, use of a lot of services that would require a major new investment.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just following up on one of Member Kinahan's questions, the other subdivision or complexes that were looked at in the analysis, did they break down the special ed versus non-special ed student costs? You had made a comment that there's an unknown quantity of whether there might be a higher special ed component to the apartments because
Right, I mean, this was sort of a concern that the school superintendent had, that since Braintree has a very good reputation for special education services, that providing a large number of new housing units on the market might attract people who would move here for special education services, and therefore there might be more special education students than, you know, the estimate based on other apartment units. But, you know, that was a concern. We don't have real data to know for sure what will happen.
Right. But I guess my question is there's data on the school age kids at the other sites. Is there anything that has any flavor to that with respect to the special education question?
Right, yeah, it was based on the percentage of students that in the school system that use special education.
Okay.
So that percentage was applied to the 117 new students to estimate the number that would need special ed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's my only question. Okay, so
Which was 22% of
that's
students.
22% townwide?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other fiscal questions before?
I don't know whether it's a fiscal question or a question, but in the police part, if it's determined that at certain times in the afternoon they need to hire a detail to manage the traffic at the two addresses or ingresses to the property, would detail work, extra work like that, would that be picked up as sort of overtime, or would that be included in this 2 officer 2.5?
The estimate I have, which is, you know, is one officer every, you know, 24 hours, national officer. You know, I think the police chief feels that would be sufficient. I think he's also looking for other things that might manage the traffic or monitor the traffic. And he didn't really express a need for sort of supplementary police personnel to deal with that. But, you know, if there was some special construction or special activity that required a police detail, that would be additional, and presumably the property owner would pay for that.
Okay, we'll direct that then to the developers. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so I think with that, we can move on to the next item. Thank you very much. We'll move on to traffic. Director, do you think we should hear from Mr. Diaz first? I know we have the letter November 5th from MDM.
Sure. I think at this point, I think we can hear from the developer. I know they have a presentation, and at that point, I think after that, we can hear from Mr. Diaz, and then and we can stop at any time, because I know the applicant civil team does have some plans. So I think it makes sense to let the applicant kind of speak a little bit about any planned updates, and then we can enter into conversations with Mr. Diaz, and then obviously with the applicant civil team.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Good evening again, Frank Marinelli, and with me this evening, the TCR representatives who you've met before, Mark Baranski and Emily White from TCR, and also our traffic engineer, Bob Michow, is here, our architect, Steve Shetler, and Nick Delacaba, who is with Allen and Major, who is the civil engineer. We thank Mr. Seidman for his report, and it did pretty much validate some of the findings that were in the Forgieri report, which was 2 months earlier. But basically, the range of $733,000 net to $1.1 million net revenue each year on tax revenue to the town, and that's after deducting, you know, the categories that Mr. Seidman covered, and also the pre-construction money, as cited by Member Kent, is critical. It's important. It's $4 million. It's $3 million on the building permit fee, and another $1 million on water sewer connection fees. Just on that topic, I'd also add that some of the projects that were listed in the table, and I think it was from the past planning board submissions, the table, only 2 of those are under construction, the 56 units at Beld site and the 39 at Hancock Street. Others are, you know, years off. In fact, one of them was denied by the zoning board recently that's listed in that table. Also, just following up on a question on the assessments, it would be hard to believe that any of the assessments on apartment complexes within the town have gone down. In fact, the Patriot Ledger did an article in June of 2024 that listed 3 apartment complexes built within the last 20 years as 3 out of the top 5 taxpayers in the town of Braintree. So that all supports and validates the report that you have tonight, both in the Forgier report and the report of Mr. Seidman, which predicts that this is a positive, substantial net revenue to the town with the development, and all of the other incalculable economic impacts of a consumer base and the open space is, as pointed out, it's over 55%. We're adding a trail. We have the beautiful public amenity that's already out there, the Riverwalk, and so it's going to be a tremendous place to live. Our architect, the last time, just for those that haven't followed the hearings, we've been before the planning board on August 12th, September 9th, and again on August 14th. October 14th. The last time we were here on October 14th, we had a request to make sure that we did some revisions to the architecture. Those revisions were well received. Steve Shetler, our architect, will speak to it again at the end of the presentations. As the planning director stated and the chair stated, we had Mr. Seidman. Eric Diaz is the peer reviewer on civil, and then Bob Misha will speak on the traffic. So unless you want me, Madam Chair, to go through the project for those that might be tuning in for the first time, I mean, that's the factory, that's what we have. We have a $230 million transformation into grade A apartment homes, 752 by the largest private residential developer in the country, Chairman Crow, who has built over 300,000 residences. That's the before and after. Phase 1 is now 6 buildings because we were requested the last time to divide the long edifice of Building 4 into 2. So now in the blue you have 1A, 1B, 2, 3, and then 4A and 4B. That's phase 1. And then phase 2 will be built a year later, and that phase 1 is 427, phase 2 is 325 in the building on the right-hand side of the site. So at this point, if Eric...
If we just move on to what the new materials would be great.
Yeah, so if Mr. Dias, as the planning director stated, wanted to give his report, then Nick Delacava, the project civil engineer, will follow up with his responses. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Yes, if you please come up. Thank you, Mr. Dias.
Good evening. For the record, Eric Dias, registered professional engineer with Strong Point Engineering, and I am peer reviewing the stormwater on this project. This is actually my first time before the board on this particular project, which is not to say that there hasn't been a lot going on sort of behind the scenes since it came across our desk. So I'll kind of walk the board through kind of where we've been and where we are tonight, and then I'm glad to answer any questions. So when we first got the project plans and drainage reports, we did what we typically do, which is sort of a bird's eye view, provide some preliminary comments looking for things that could be glaring issues or things that have the potential to impact the overall design. And one of the things that we noticed at that time, which is very typical of projects and of projects of this size, and I know the board has experience with, is test pits. When an engineer initially goes out to do due diligence on a site, they kind of pepper the place with test pits, get a good idea of the soil conditions out there. But as the design evolves, stormwater facilities move, they change shape, they get added, they get reduced, and what we often end up with is a need for more test pits because the regulation requires them to be in the footprint of the infiltration facilities. So we brought that to the project team's attention. They responded very well. They went out, they scheduled test pits as soon as possible. Our office witnessed them. I think we're out there for 3 days, maybe a little bit longer. Some of the test pit work was done at night to accommodate the existing traffic on the site and not interfere with day-to-day activities on the site. So that all went very well. Soil conditions are generally favorable throughout the site from what we've seen. After that, we kind of dug in, got into some more nuts and bolts engineering, and we issued a letter, which I believe the board has probably seen. And I believe it was, I'll say it was early October, I believe it was. And in that letter, and I'm glad to go through it point by point, but there were really 2 primary concerns that we called out. One was with regard to a groundwater mounting analysis. We had some differences of opinion on how we thought that should be done. The applicant noted that it does check the boxes required in the stormwater handbook, which we agree with, but there were some functionality concerns that we had that we asked them to look into a little bit more. The other item was with regard to a floodplain elevation. The floodplain elevation on site has changed as the result of work that has recently been done, remediation work. I believe the dam was removed and things of that nature. The current FEMA mapping doesn't reflect a new floodplain elevation, but the team who did the remediation work and the dam removal has presumably done that analysis, and I believe the applicant is currently working with that team to come up with a final floodplain elevation. So that's in process. So this past, I believe it was Friday, we received revised plans and drainage reports. I have not had a chance to go through them in excruciating detail yet, but I did have an opportunity to review them before the meeting tonight, at least preliminarily. I can go into the boring details on groundwater mounding if you'd like and put you all to sleep. But what I will say, in summary at least, unless you want me to go further, is that the applicant team adjusted their hydrologic model to remove infiltration from the design. And the result still illustrates that even without infiltration, the peak rate of discharge and the volume of discharge to the design points is still reduced over the existing condition. So removing infiltration completely is a conservative approach, right? We know that infiltration is not just going to go away. So proving that the numbers still work, even in the absence of that from the model, I think gives me a lot of comfort to be able to release that objection. So I think we're in a good place on the groundwater mounding, which in my opinion was probably the biggest hurdle that we had with regard to the drainage design. The rest of it is really record keeping, dotting I's, crossing T's type of things. And then I know the applicant, as I mentioned, is in process on the floodplain analysis. So just a couple of thoughts on that. The floodplain, the jurisdiction of the floodplain really falls, it's dual jurisdiction in Braintree. It falls under, I'll say, primarily the Conservation Commission as a resource area. And I'll say secondarily, by a very slight margin, if at all, it falls under a certain section in your zoning bylaw. There are requirements in that section for design requirements with regard to the floodplain. Buildings have to be situated above the floodplain entrance. Compensatory storage is required if the floodplain is being filled. So while that is being determined, we don't have a defined floodplain at this point. And in my mind, the board has two potential options on how to deal with that from where we are, obviously at their discretion. Option A would be to wait until the report is done and then prove that everything meets the requirements and render a decision at that time. The other option the board could consider if they wanted to is the design team has a good idea now of what that final floodplain elevation is going to be. And I would imagine that they've designed around that. So the board could consider rendering a decision if they were at that point based on the information at hand with the condition that the final study and elevation be provided prior to construction and any type of substantive change to the plan would come back to the board for a modification. Obviously, that would be at the board's risk, the applicant's risk, not the board's. And I think that the board would have some degree of protection in that the planning board approval does not allow the applicant to put a shovel in the ground without a Concom approval. I don't believe the Concom would be able to provide the same tactic in that case, but just something for the board to consider should they want to. But really those are the finer points of the stormwater review at this point, but I'm glad to answer any questions if you'd like.
And the floodplain special permit that provision doesn't apply with the special permit?
No, the special permit is not required in the MBTA zoning bylaw. It's waived for that purpose.
Okay. Yeah. Would this, I guess except for the MBTA, would this fall under the special permit?
If it wasn't for the MBTA zoning, it would fall under the special permit. But when the MBTA zoning came out, that was specifically exempted, I think in response to a state requirement that special permits cannot be required for the MBTA zoning provisions.
Okay. And then just as far as the groundwater mounding and the infiltration, is that general soil conditions, or does that have to do with the prior use of the site? Or
no, it has to do with general soil conditions. Okay. It has to do with general soil conditions and the amount of effluent that's being recharged into the soil, basically. When you have a lot of water going into soils, there tends to be a mound beneath the system. And the requirement of the state standard is to illustrate that if the mound rises, it will retract within at least 72 hours to make way for the next storm event. From a practical perspective, what our concern was that if the mound rises enough into the system, it could rob capacity from the system. But what removing the infiltrative component from the analysis does is it accounts for that. It says, okay, if the system is chock full, every drop in is a drop out, and the numbers still work at the downstream discharge. So we know that the reality is that it won't be full, especially for the entire duration of a storm. So it is a conservative approach that illustrates that it will still function as intended.
Okay, thank you. Member McCamey?
Thank you. I'm no expert,
Yes,
so
sir.
bear with me, sir. When we're talking about floodplain here, first of all, how likely is it that this area has the potential to be flooded or has been flooded in the past?
That's a great question. So the mapped floodplain on site is considered to be it's a zone A or it's actually a zone AE, which a zone AE is an area that will flood once in 100 years, basically, and it has a determinate floodplain elevation. So at some point, FEMA did an actual study, or someone did a study and submitted it to FEMA, that says this is the expected flood elevation at this property once every 100 years, just like a 100-year storm event. The change in the property to remove the dam and the other remediation has certainly changed that elevation. I have not yet seen what the result is of that. Presumably, and the reports are that the floodplain elevation was lowered as a result, which means it's going to drop, which works in the applicant's favor in that case. They just need to provide the final numbers that say that.
Okay, so when you say it drops, to me, that sounds worse.
No, actually, no. So what happens when the floodplain is, let's say the floodplain's at elevation 100, anything that they do at that elevation is going to cause them to need compensatory storage. The more it drops down lower, the more it kind of, think of it like it's funneling into the stream bank and further away from the higher areas of the site where they're working. So the lower that floodplain elevation gets, the less potential there is to disturb the elevation, because they're working generally higher on the site.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
With the river right there,
Yes.
what percentage of water goes into the river from this area versus being compensated for?
So that's a great question. I don't have exact numbers off the top of my head, but I'll speak in generalities. I will say most of the water from the project site currently is being discharged toward the river. I will also say that in the existing condition, I don't believe there's much on site in the way of infiltrative capability. I believe it's probably what's on site now is just a collection and conveyance system, which is what we see on these old projects. So in that regard, any degree of infiltration that they're providing is a benefit, right? It's going to get rid of surface water and get water back into the ground. I don't have the exact numbers at hand, but I do know that the amount of infiltration that they're providing not only meets but exceeds what's required under both the state and local regulations.
Okay, so some of the actions that the applicant are taking will help to send the water back into the river, or?
It will still, yes, the overland flow will still discharge to the river,
Right.
but it will be treated through structural practices and things like that. But it will also provide additional flow to be recharged into the groundwater, which is also valuable here, which groundwater in this location also ends up in the river.
Okay. So if everything works out, we're not expecting to have any, basement flooding in these units at all or anything like that?
No. Actually, their analysis actually shows a significant reduction in flow and volume to off-site, which is notable. And additionally, The current groundwater levels show that all of the houses, all of the structures proposed are well above groundwater, so that's not a huge issue or a huge concern. And then the provisions in your floodplain bylaw requirements will also help ensure that floodwaters and that 1% flood occurrence are not going to result in inundation of the structures as well.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Kent?
Just a couple of, the biggest risk would be in the, I guess it's the southwest corner there.
Bring this with me. In this location here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the lowest area of the site. Everything's going down in that direction and the river's flowing that way. So I would say that that's where the biggest risk is. And it's, you know, further from the majority of the structures that are being proposed as well.
Okay. And the second question unrelated, the train tracks and that's built on, I guess, on banks of rock or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Any impact, collateral impact from that?
No, none. I don't believe those are being disturbed from their existing condition as a part of this project, and you know, they're not being encroached upon either. So there's no real concern from a geostructural perspective on that.
Okay, thank you.
Member Conley? Member Kane?
The only thing I think you've already answered, it's a reduction in non-permeable surfaces, so we're not worried about the neighbors directly adjacent having any issues either. It should be a net benefit for them as well, right?
That is correct, yes. Any discharge that's shown not going to the river from this particular project is still showing a reduction in flow and volume going to that location. So that would be a benefit to the neighbors, I believe. In fact, the installation of a compliant stormwater system on this site, as proposed to the conveyance system that's there now, is in and of itself a betterment.
Oh, great, yeah. Cool.
Member Kinahan?
No questions.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Again, for the record, my name is Nick Delacava with Allen & Major Associates, site civil engineer for the project. So kind of to reiterate some of what Eric went over, as far as the FEMA floodplain goes, the applicant is aware that the current FEMA maps are outdated, even the most current maps that were just released in '25, because they do not account for the dam removals. So the applicant has engaged a consultant, SLR, to perform an updated hydraulic analysis to establish the actual floodplain elevation that runs across the site today. That said, we have done some preliminary studies. We are 99.9% confident that all the buildings are well beyond and outside the new floodplain elevation. Along with the vast majority of all of our improvements, I would say that northwest corner of the site, kind of on the west side of the building, just north, on the west side of the river, just north of Building 4. That area, kind of where the fish ladder is, and that the overlook that's installed today, that area, the floodplain is a little uncertain. There might be some areas where our proposed grading could impact that floodplain, but again, we need that study to confirm that. But we are required under the Wetlands Protection Act to mitigate any filling of that floodplain that may exist. So there's no question whether or not we will comply or not. We are required to. So if there's any modifications that need to be made to the design at a later date as a result of that study, we would come back and file for an amendment. We're also open to keeping the public hearing open, if that's the board's opinion. We would leave that up to you to decide. So that said, I'll just kind of quickly run through the proposed design, because I think there were a few questions on, impervious cover and treatment and where the water goes, and then I'll just open it up to general questions. So everything in red, those red boxes you see, those are underground infiltration systems. All the blue lines and dots, those are catch basins, drain manholes, and the subsurface conveyance pipes. The site itself is categorized as a redevelopment under the Stormwater Handbook. That's because we are introducing and creating 2 additional acres of new green space on the property compared to what exists today. When rain falls onto the site, it's going to be captured in deep sump, hooded catch basins. Those are routed to water quality units, which are essentially proprietary separators. They're swirl chambers that capture the sediment, and then it gets discharged into the underground infiltration systems. We have 5 subsurface systems across the site. There are 4 on the east side of the river and 1 on the west side. In total, they have approximately 45,000 cubic feet of storage volume. These systems significantly reduce the peak rates and the volumes of runoff that discharge towards the river compared to what exists today. The primary factor for that is the local requirement for the 50% phosphorus removal. In order to prove that you are meeting that 50%, you're required to hold and store at least 0.8 inches of runoff across the entire pervious area. So we took that calculation, converted it to a volume, and then provided that storage underground. The systems have been designed to work with the phased construction of the project. If and when, phase 1 is built, all of the stormwater management that's installed during phase 1 is meant to treat, capture, and convey that runoff in compliance with the Stormwater Handbook without phase 2 ever being built. And then if and when phase 2 is built, it's designed to connect back into phase 1 and then convey all the way back to the river. So with either phase, the stormwater management system will operate as intended. As Eric described, we've done some due diligence in the background along this whole process, as well as kind of keeping the stormwater management system updated as we move buildings around or tweak the shapes of them or whatever it may be. We've conducted the 14 test pits across the site. We did add that infiltration system on the west side of the river. Originally, we had all 5 systems on the east side. Based on the test pits, it was determined that there was a feasible location just north of Building 4 for a separate system there. And lastly, we eliminated 4 of the 10 discharge points to the river. We heard some concerns from the public as well as the Conservation Commission that there were too many outfalls. And so we consolidated those as many as we could just to reduce the amount of work and the discharge points that actually go into the river itself. So that said, we look forward to continued coordination with the consultant and hopefully close this out pretty soon. So with that, I can open up to questions or I can hand it off for traffic.
Any comments or questions? Yes, Member Kane.
Why do we have to have any discharges into the river? Why can't there just be more infiltration systems along it?
It has a lot to do with elevations. As soon as you put the water underground, you only have so much elevation to work with to get it to the river. So depending on where we put it into the ground, we would need more discharge points. And we can't put underground systems everywhere across the site because there are large portions on both sides of the river that have an AUL associated with them. It's contaminated soils.
Okay. That runoff would be oil and whatever is on the roadways, is that right?
So the systems capture runoff from, yes, all the parking lot areas as well as the roof runoff from the buildings.
And so, and those would feed out to the river under any circumstances, so any rain event, or is that just like an overcharge, the system's overloaded, it has to it has to go somewhere, it goes into the river once in a blue moon?
No, so yeah, the majority of the time it'll be captured in these systems. During larger storm events, probably, the 2-inch or more rain event, it's going to start bypassing those systems and discharging into the river.
Okay, so it's not every rainstorm it goes in. Okay.
All right, thank you. I think traffic would be great.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Chair and board members. For the record, Robert Michaud with MDM Transportation Consultants, Marlborough, Massachusetts. I'd like to really keep the traffic brief. We are in receipt of the October 30th Ty and Bond peer review. It was a very clean review, frankly. There were only a couple of what I would classify as housekeeping questions, clarifications that were noted that we did respond to in a subsequent letter dated to November 5th. As you know, the peer review process entailed a rigorous evaluation and a sensitivity analysis of various configurations of driveways, which driveways would be open, during which phases, would they function properly, would they provide adequate queue storage area and capacity. All of those issues have been resolved with concurrence with the peer reviewer that, as proposed, the project will consist of the 2 phases. The first phase will rely exclusively on the Plain Street driveway for residents with a provision for emergency-only access onto John Mahara Highway. And then subsequent to that, with the phase 2 component, that John Mahara driveway would be open to general traffic. We've done the analysis of both scenarios that indicate clearly that the Plain Street driveway has ample capacity with an average queue of about 2 cars and left turns during peak hours to support the first phase, and that once that second driveway opens up on John Mahara Highway, that queue will stay at or even below that level because of the more direct ability to get to John Mahara Highway, which is the primary commuter path.
It looked like the updated queue was 50-some feet.
54, 57, yeah, it's less than 60 feet. So that would represent essentially 2 vehicles. The design length for a vehicle would be 25 feet. So the typical queues that you would see during peak hours would be around 2 cars. The available queue storage before any parking is encountered on the site has the capacity for between 80 and 100 feet of queue storage. So there will be no influence between parking and what happens at the driveways. We've also done a supplemental analysis that was subject to peer review with a finding that our analysis was correct and reasonable, that as phase 2 is built and John Mahara driveway opens up, it will be monitored to ensure that its operations are safe and efficient. And if there's any reason to prohibit left turns, that might mean that you direct people to the Plain Street driveway. And we actually assumed that in the analysis as a worst case. And that analysis also shows that vehicle queuing will be contained within the queue storage area of the driveway without impacting parking, and that the typical delays under that more extreme scenario would have an average delay of less than 20 seconds, a level of service C or better operation. So from a capacity standpoint, we're very comfortable that what's being proposed here under either scenario, even assuming a restriction of left turns at John Mahara, which we don't think is going to happen, that even under that scenario, it will work quite well. We also know that the signal at Plain Street and John Mahara Highway operates very efficiently, that it will operate from an average of 16 seconds of delay to 20 seconds of delay in the more extreme example that I just mentioned, where all left turning traffic would actually come out onto Plain Street, then process through that signal to go north. So we've done iterations of analysis. It's been subject to peer review. There's concurrence by peer reviewer that it is adequate and sufficient to support the project. The only remaining questions really had to do with the placement of reserved parking spaces for what we call transportation network companies, right? Uber, Lyft, the FedEx vehicle, deliveries, that kind of thing. The site actually has been updated to reflect the location of where those spaces would be located, and they're shown, this is at a very small scale. Each building will have at least 2 spaces designated for that use. The larger building 5 will actually have a total of 4 spaces designated for that type of delivery activity. And you'll see on the left side of this diagram, we've done a swept path analysis of those spaces to demonstrate that they'll have adequate maneuvering area for those types of operations. So it's a simple clarification that was requested and provided. We've clarified in tabular format the queuing capacity of the driveways, which we just discussed. And the only other remaining comment had to do with the circulation elements of Building 5, which is the second phase of development. Ordinarily, there would be an auto turn analysis that clarifies how vehicles will circulate within the garage structure itself. The structural analysis of that garage is forthcoming. It's not done yet, and it probably won't be done anytime soon. There's a process there where the architect and structural designer will have to coordinate the placement of column lines, offsets to buildings, utility locations, and other features that eventually will be on a plan that can be tested. And we would suggest that the board consider that an open issue so that prior to any building permits that would be issued for Building 5, that analysis be provided, reviewed, and validated. So that's really the extent of what we needed to clean up, if you will, on the peer review. In conclusion, this project is replacing an active commercial use, and the board should keep that in mind, that on a daily basis, over the course of a typical 24-hour period of time, there'll be very little difference between what is currently being generated at the site and what's being proposed, even at full build. We also know that during certain peak hours, and for phase 1 of development, that there'll be a net reduction in traffic activity during, as you look at the Plain Street crossing, for instance, and the signal there at Hancock Street. That location under phase 1 will actually sustain less traffic than currently is being generated from the site. Eventually, under a full build condition, there will be vehicle increases principally in the morning as an outbound movement, which we've analyzed again in 2 separate scenarios: all traffic left turn out of Plain, and then the condition where you have a second driveway at Mahar. Functions under both cases. So that really concludes the traffic piece of this. I am more than glad to answer any remaining questions the board has. I will note, finally, and this didn't show up in peer review, but the applicant is undergoing a full evaluation of the rail crossings that are adjacent to the site. We are leading an effort right now called a Diagnostic Team Review, DTR. That's something that the MBTA requested in their commentary on the project. We're coordinating closely with Peter here in town, MBTA, Keolis, Federal Rail, Mass DOT, Police and Fire, and we've got special rail experts on the team, as well as MDM on the traffic side. We will be looking at those individual crossings and identifying potential actions that might need to be brought to bear, independent of the project, as part of that process. As a point of reference, those DTRs are now a requirement that Federal Rail is identifying as necessary, independent of this project. So this project is, in fact, facilitating that requirement. And we hope that that field review will occur sometime mid-December, and that a documented series of recommendations would come out of that meeting sometime toward the end of January. That's tentatively what we're planning.
That's sort of one of my questions. So will the result of that dictate what that Hancock Street access looks like or doesn't look like?
One of the discussion points that will be had is whether or not the MBTA and other experts would advise that it be used for general traffic. That would be the desire for the proponent. However, we also know that the sentiment that's been expressed to the team by MBTA is that crossing their preference would be that it only serve for emergency vehicle access purposes, period. There's also discussion as to whether or not the crossing should be used for construction process period operations. That's currently being used for construction period operations as part of the restoration project. We would hope that that continues for the construction of the Phase 4A and 4B buildings. The intensity of traffic, construction-related traffic, probably wouldn't be materially different than what has occurred over the past year or so, but that will be another point of discussion during that process. The analysis, to be clear, does not assume that general vehicular travel will be able to use that crossing. We're essentially saying, don't really need it. It would be awfully convenient to have it, but it's not something that is necessary for the project to be successful and to have adequate access onto Plain Street and John Mahar. So the analysis excludes it.
And if it's emergency only, what does that look like on the ground? Is that a breakthrough gate for a fire truck,
No,
or is it?
It's actually, the gate controls that currently exist at the crossing would remain as they are, unchanged. There would be a gate on the project side of that driveway that would also be secured by fencing material that would not allow for pedestrian activity to cross the rail line. So another stated concern of MBTA was pedestrian accessibility over the rail. It's a safety concern that they've raised. It will be a point of discussion in mid-December as well. But that would be a Knox box type gate that is located beyond the tracks. So if rail crossing does occur when an emergency response is necessary, those gates would still come down as they would today and would eventually rise, and then the emergency apparatus could proceed to the gate, unlock the gate, and gain access from that side. Our understanding, and the proponent continues to have these conversations with fire department, is that the provision of the driveway on Plain Street and the driveway on John Mahar would be sufficient for emergency vehicle access response to the property generally. There are design details that relate to what kind of gate controls would be necessary on the John Mahar driveway, certainly, and the proponent will simply defer to what the fire department wants. Do they want it to be optically operated? Do they want it to be a Knox box? Et cetera. But as far as I understand, and based on ongoing conversations with the fire department, although emergency access would be nice to have from that side, it's not a prerequisite to the site.
Yeah, I guess one of my concerns is if police and fire can get through the gate, if it's emergency only, but if there's some sort of criminal or fire emergency at building 2 or building 3, and there's however many 100 people living in that building 4, where do they go if they can't come across the bridge and they can't get out on Hancock?
Well, the response would necessarily have to go through either Plain or Mahar to get to that point, and depending on the nature of the response, that could involve mutual aid response, for instance. It's not necessarily the case that those fire apparatus would be using Hancock Street to get to the site. They may very well be coming down Mahar or Plain to begin with, so there wouldn't be any inherent benefit to having that third means of access to the property. In the event that train crossings occurred, there would need to be, an appropriate response by fire department. If the rail crossings were occurring at Plain Street, they would have the opportunity to come in from the Mahar side as an alternative, as they would today. It's nothing changes from that perspective. But the need for the Hancock crossing is not a fundamentally critical issue, although there's a preference to have that, a willingness to allow it by MBTA so far, that's what they've said, and we'll cover that issue again during the DTR process.
Okay. All right, thank you. Member McCamey?
No questions.
Member Kent?
No questions.
Member Conley?
Thank you. Could you clarify for us for the emergency access? In the materials we provided, it's inconsistent. So on some of the plans, it's showing the emergency access as being there and some it isn't. So outside of this conversation that you're having related to transportation, the emergency access remains no matter what those findings are?
Correct. So, and is this question pointed to the Mahar crossing or the Hancock?
The Hancock crossing.
Okay. As it's currently proposed, we expect that the gate controls and the use of the driveway would remain as it is, unchanged. Until such time as the MBTA pulls its license agreement for the use of that crossing, there would be status quo, right? And that's something that's being discussed as part of the DTR. My sense is that MBTA at the end of the process will allow the continued use of the crossing for emergency access purposes only, in which case the only action that the developer would need to take would be the placement of a gate on their property side with appropriate fencing, right? So that's really the likely outcome. There's still a possibility that MBTA and others might find there to be benefit with allowing general vehicular access, although the chances that that actually happens is, in my view, slim.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Member Kane?
Trying to remember what the decision was with the John Mahar Highway exit during construction. I think Member Kent, you and I talked during the meeting about the sequencing, at least of construction. Do you remember that conversation? Was it would be like a year after the first one starts that the second one would open up? Does that ring a bell?
I was concerned about all the traffic going onto Plain Street.
Right.
And I think what I heard was that while phase one was being constructed, all the access would be through Plain Street. But then when phase two started up, the access to Mahar Highway would be available before phase two was completed.
No, the phase two construction would continue to rely on the Mahar access point as the construction gate, if you will, until the project, the construction of Building 5 was completed and occupancy was impending. Then the driveway would be converted to a general use driveway. So that Mahar driveway really is only going to function as a construction access point until such time as Building 5 comes online for tenant occupancy.
So I remain concerned about this.
I'm just concerned then about the impact to Plain Street when all those units in phase one are all depending solely on Plain Street.
Right.
I mean,
And that's what the peer review sensitivity analysis achieved, right? So we know that at 473 units or so of phase one, that over the course of a peak hour, there will be about 70 left turns an hour coming out on a Plain Street. That's the number that relates to that number of units for phase one at full occupancy. The level of service analysis shows that there will be about 14 or 16 seconds of delay for the left turn, a vehicle queue of 2 vehicles under that scenario. The alternate scenario that we looked at was completion of Building 5, Phase 2, the opening of the driveway to accommodate that, and an option where the left turns were not allowed under phase 2 to go into Mahar. All of that traffic would have to go to Plain. And that's a more extreme outcome. We don't think that's going to happen, but we've tested it and we've documented that in our peer review response. So that 70 cars an hour that would be making the left turn under phase 1 doubles essentially under phase 2 to about 130 left turns an hour, about 2 per minute. Under that scenario, that level of service is 16 to 18 seconds delay and also has about a 2, possibly a 3-car queue. So that Plain Street driveway can handle it. The signal can handle it quite well, actually. There's a 4-second impact under that scenario. But we don't think we're going to need we don't think that's going to be the outcome, but if it happens, it's going to work.
I guess my concern is that's all, yes, the math makes sense. What you're saying is you can only effectively get one person out every 14 seconds to take a left turn. One of the members of the public raised a good point during the last meeting, which was, if I have to wait 14 seconds and I can bang a quick right, I'm probably going to instinctually take that right. And then you're going into that intersection with the light, and in a very congested intersection, there's no real way to shed. And I mean, I don't know. You're supposed to just trust the peer reviews, right? And like just expect it to work out. But I mean, I cannot emphasize enough just how much of a cluster explicit that intersection, if you were to take a right out, is.
Yeah, so to be clear, so we've got video, we've been out here multiple times. We're looking 7 years into the future. We've used very conservative assumptions and projecting those future conditions, all subject to peer review. The levels of service that we're modeling are well below the congestion levels that you're suggesting. And I would say that we're not generating a car every 14 seconds. We're generating cars 2 per minute. That's at 140 cars an hour, left turns, worst case, that's 2 cars a minute. Plain Street has the benefit of being sandwiched, if you will, between 2 active signals. There are regular gaps in that traffic that are created by those signals.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, and so we actually took the time to look at the video and do delay studies. We really dug into this. We want to make sure we get it right too. And that's what's driving the numbers in these reports, right? So even in the more extreme example, we're still showing that on average, the amount of delay someone has, and the most difficult movement, the left turn out, is going to be around 14 to 18 seconds. So there's a lot of room for error in here, and we don't think even in the more extreme case it's going to be an issue.
What happens if phase 2 doesn't get built in terms of the John Mahar access?
It would remain as an emergency access point as far as I understand.
The John Mahar, not the...
John Mahar, correct.
It would remain emergency access.
Correct.
How do you feel about that?
I mean, I would generally defer professional experience to vicarious experience, but it just seems that, between 7 and 9:30 in the morning and between 4 and 6 in the evening, that's a pretty tough intersection without, the increment from this project.
Right.
Right, and again, I think relative to what's currently being generated at the site, under phase 1, there'll be very little difference, frankly. In fact, just to give you a snapshot of what that, and these are based on real numbers, right? We went and counted the existing site at both driveways. Under phase 1, we're going to generate a net reduction in entering traffic in the morning, commuter morning, of 36 vehicles. 36 fewer vehicles per hour are going to come into the property, which makes sense because it's a registry and more people want to go in than out. Whereas residential is the opposite, right? And there's going to be a 70 vehicle increase leaving, about 1 per minute leaving the site. So the net difference from what is currently on the site under phase 1 is a net difference of 35 vehicle trips. Right? It's not a large number, very manageable. In the evening, it's even more interesting. We'll have 34 fewer vehicles entering the site than the commercial activities that are there today, and 70 fewer vehicles leaving the property than currently exists today. So during the evening peak hours, there are going to be more than 100 vehicles less that are being generated by this property under phase 1. So, it's a pretty significant finding. It's not common to find a site that's as active as the one that we're working with here, and replacing it with a residential use that has a lower intensity. So certainly the construction of phase 1 is going to allow the actual measurement of the performance once it's up and running. All of the numbers are pointing to what could be a significant reduction during the evening peak hours. and almost a net wash, if you will, during the morning peak hours. So, you know, this is, if you think of it as dipping your toe in, right? Let's see how phase one goes. There'll be the ability prior to occupancy of phase two to better understand the exact patterns and volumes that are being generated. And I think there's actually a net benefit.
Okay, well, I guess I would advocate that if necessary, at certain peak times, if a police detail was helpful in managing the situation, that the owners would agree to have that backup
You know, I think,
alternative.
yeah, and I think there will be a monitoring provision as part of the project. It's often and principally the case that a monitoring component is offered as part of the findings, the conditions that a board will apply. My firm does a lot of peer review. That's a common condition. So I strongly believe, based on my experience, I've been doing it for 37 years now, and we have a lot of data for these now. We actually go back and look at the measured performance. They perform quite closely, if not slightly lower than what our studies document. That things, you know, there'll be the ability, if you will, to make adjustments to the site based on the outcome of those monitoring studies. The use of police details is something that is common to construction activity, and we would expect that during the construction management phase of the project that there would be a construction management plan that does make use of the police details. But during the normal operation of the site, we're nowhere near a condition that would suggest the need for police details. We'd have to have orders of magnitude more volume for that to even be justified.
Okay.
Any follow-ups? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're just going to take a quick 3-minute break.
Sure.
Right. All right, everybody, if we can just start making our way back. Okay, move on. All right, thank you. Please go ahead, introduce yourself again.
Good evening, Steve Shetler, architect with Bergman Hendry Architects of the project. So we wanted to come back and give an update on the architecture, and we thank you for the positive feedback that we got at the last planning board meeting from both the board and the community. We heard some comments about colors and how the colors are used on the project, and so we wanted to address that issue as well. This is a slide that has appeared in previous reviews. This is the color palette for the project. It employs, as you can see, whites and grays, and then colors and some dark accents. All of the buildings in the project are unified with whites and grays, and then the colors are used to differentiate the buildings or to highlight entrances or special architectural features on the project. The colors are pretty muted, and they're rooted in they're not historical colors, but they're rooted in historical buildings and precedents throughout New England and in the community here as well. Both on a historical level and on a residential level, the sage greens, the dark blues, you know, the barn red, if you will, along with the white and gray clapboard. Here's a slide comparison of buildings 1A and 1B and how color differentiates the two buildings. They're certainly unified in their use of the common elements, the roofs and the dormers, and the white and the dark elements, with 1A on the left also having the amenity space. It has the brick, but it utilizes basically a white and red cloak. And opposite to the east on 1B, the same kind of language of architecture is used, but with greens and dark browns accents as well. So clearly, the buildings work together as a family, but they're differentiated within that family. And here, again, the lower right image is of building 1A from the Riverwalk, from across the river, looking up at the site. And again, that red and white palette is carried through. And on the upper left, you can see building 2 with building 1A on the right-hand side of the frame. And that building uses more of the cooler blues as an accent. Again, differentiating, but again, relating closely to each other. We want to avoid a very unified or singular aesthetic approach to the project, given its size of 6 buildings in phase 1 and building 5 in phase 2. Here's an updated view of building 4, originally 1 building, and you can see split into 2, very closely related by the uniform use of balconies and the white to unify, and the roof lines. 1A to the, building 4A to the left, utilizing the blue palette, relating a little bit to the water, and then 4B to the north using the gray and red. Even on the backside, this is the west side of building 4B and 4A in the background. This is facing the MBTA and Hancock further to the west. Again, the buildings are closely related and the approach to roof, but then again are differentiated with this muted palette of colors, and so bringing a little diversity to the project. And then this is the view up and down the main north-south roadway for the project. The image on the upper left we saw a month ago at the last presentation. That's the Building 5 from the roundabout with Building 1B on the left. And then up at the north end of the site, looking back south, you can see how the palette and the color and the diversity of roofline and roofscape works together. Building 5 is on the left of the lower image, and Building 2 is on the right, again employing a cooler palette with the blue accents. So in all, we think a project of this size needs this diversity of palette rather than a singular repetition. And we use these colors in a way that gives each building identity and the residents identity within the overall project without kind of being too loud or pastiche. We thank you for the positive feedback. We think we're on the right track here, and we hope that the board and the community agrees.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions or comments for the architect? No? Okay. All right, thank you. All right. So 9:30, well, it is still a public hearing. We're obviously not going to get through everything tonight, but if anybody wants to come up, give your name and address with any public comments.
Good evening. My name is Robert Tomer, and I live in Central Ave. I want to commend, Madam Chair, I want to commend the questions that you've asked of the developer. Everyone here, they're all well-meaning questions. And collectively, you've asked questions that haven't been answered, okay? We're building apartments. They're not homes, they're apartments. And no matter what they tell you, they're not going to generate the same income as property where people live. So we're going to be stuck with that forever. And people are going to come and go. And one of the advantages of living in Braintree, beyond 10 miles from Boston, is our school system. Does anybody really think that high rollers are going to move to Braintree when people with families can come here and take advantage of our school system? And that's going to be the biggest draw on everything here. And there isn't going to be enough money generated from this or any of the other pipeline things to overcome that because we're already in a deficit. Why doesn't anybody ever talk about that? And I'm so tired of the lectures. I'm just as much of an expert on the traffic as any one of these people are because I've lived here for 64 years. A lot of you people are older than I am. I'm sorry to say that. But you know what that bottleneck looks like. And we're going to put a city in there, and we're only going to get 2 extra cars? Are we in Oz? Is the wizard going to take care of this? I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but my God, I've been listening to this stuff since 10 minutes to 8, and it's all nonsense. Please be vigilant. They've scared away all the other people from the town except me, and I'm not going anywhere. I have to be an advocate because the incumbent just left, okay? I didn't get elected. I really don't care. I'd rather be a citizen that's going to look out for the town like you guys are because I'm not ever going to miss another meeting when stuff like this comes up because I'm going to speak for the town just like you guys are. But I don't have to answer to the mayor, okay? So please be vigilant. Continue to chastise them if you need to, but ask every question and demand every answer from them because everything they're telling you isn't true because it hasn't happened yet, and we're still 3 or 4 years out from it being realized. So we're going to have to live in the deficit that we have now, the problems we have with all the schools. How the heck are you going to jam more people into Liberty or Highlands? Why doesn't even anybody bring up the names of these schools? My niece is a teacher at Liberty. I mean, where are these kids gonna go? And how many kids did they say? No, don't believe it. please be vigilant. Please stay on them. Don't let them get away with anything. If they want to succeed, they have the right, but they have to bring real numbers so we can figure out whether the town's going to collapse under that, because it will if they don't level with us. And they're not doing it because they don't have to. No one's except you. You can make them accountable. Please do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. Dr. Matchak, I know there was talk of a site walk, I think it was last week. Can you give us an
just to
update on
follow
that?
up, last Thursday night, there was talk about a site walk, and I emailed out the planning board to see if there was an opportunity to meet. Obviously, it didn't get put together in short notice, but just to give everyone a report, I did meet with Council Barrica in that district and also residents of Jonathan's Landing. We crossed Mahar Highway, and then we walked up Ivory and John Mahar, and just taking a look at the conditions of the sidewalk. And some of the sidewalks needed some work. There was some cracks. I would say the major conversation point was the intersection of Pearl and Ivory. I think there was working beacons available, but all in all, I am still in the process of reaching out to DPW to get an understanding of what the line striping, the pattern will be, because that roadway was just paved. And I think that also kind of had some effect on the traffic traveling there. So just to report back to the planning board, I did meet with the residents of Jonathan's Landing. And we just discussed John Mahar Highway, and that conversation is still ongoing. I don't believe it merited a full planning board site walk. However, I'm happy to meet any resident and/or planning board member on that site to take a look at the existing conditions of that entire area, from the sidewalk point of view, from the development site all the way up to the MBTAT station. I'm glad the applicant did bring up the DTR. That was one thing I was going to bring up. Receiving emails that came out Monday on that, and we are in the process of planning that DTR meeting. I believe it's the first 2 weeks in December were floated. And so as that process moves along, I will inform the planning board. And also, I think if the planning board would like to have a representative besides myself and Anita, I think that would also be obviously open for discussion to continue on. And in doing so, I did meet with representatives from the MBTA TOD development team. We did walk the site, and we did discuss the Hancock crossing in the DTR process. They came down just to get a boots on the ground look at the development site. This is the biggest MBTA zoning project in the state right now. So just to kind of put a emphasis on the total number of units, where it stands in relationship to the zoning act. This is the biggest project right now under consideration in the Commonwealth within the MBTA zoning. And that's why MBTA representatives just came down here and had an opportunity to meet myself, walk the site, and just to kind of get their own eyes on the landscape, per se. So all in all, that's just my kind of brief report, and I'm happy to discuss it further if anybody would like.
Okay, thank you. Any other members have any comments or questions for any of the professionals here tonight?
Well, I'll make
Go ahead.
Observation, but it seems, at least speaking for myself, my biggest concern, notwithstanding the data, is I'm concerned about the traffic. And it's a bit ironic because this is an MBTA development which is supposed to encourage the heightened use of MBTA. So, maybe some of the traffic concerns could be, shuttle buses to and from the apartments to the Red Line station or something like that would perhaps mitigate some of the concerns, if the concerns are valid.
think I'm happy to work with the application team, and I think at the next meeting, I think it makes sense to bring in our peer review from a traffic standpoint. Greg Lucas, I had a conversation with him today on the phone. He wasn't able to make it today. However, I think our ongoing conversations can bring our peer review consultant back into the equation, and we can discuss further at an upcoming meeting.
Thank you. All right, thank you all for the thorough presentation. I think at this point, let's be looking for a motion to continue to December 9th. Motion by Member Kane, a second? Second by Member Conley. All those in favor? Aye. All right, and then a motion to close tonight's hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Member Conley, a second? Second by Member Kane. All those in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. Okay. Yes.